Hey, what's going on, guys? Got another knife review for you today. Today I'm going to be talking about the Kershaw Leek. This is a pretty sweet knife. Let me drop the lighting to get you a good view of it. This is a pretty sweet knife. I've been carrying it around a fair amount, like you guys saw in my EDC. Let's jump into a size comparison. First, we got a knife that's pretty similar in price and by the same people. We got the Kershaw Cryo. Next, let's throw in, let's say, Spyderco Tenacious. I'll throw in, how about this, 940, very iconic knife as well. Let me line that up for you. Okay, and last, I'll say the Rat 1. All pretty popular knives. This guy's pretty big, as you can see, it's kind of going out of the frame. So, all pretty iconic knives. I'm going to compare it to the Cryo some through this video. I might end up doing a whole separate video on that, talking about like budget flippers with the Leek and the Cryo, the Rat, Tenacious, stuff like that. But let's jump into some of the specs. The overall length of this knife is 7 inches. You got a 3-inch blade, so 3.5 inches or 3 inches is a pretty average blade length. The blade thickness is 0.09 inches. The weight's 3 ounces. The steel is, here, let me find the steel. It is 14 C28N Sandvik steel. It is kind of weird steel. I mean, it's a Sandvik steel, but it's not, I don't think it's very common. Maybe as far as Sandvik steels go, as far as budget Sandvik steels go. But I don't have a lot of experience with it. You got a Wharncliffe blade style, a bee-blasted finish, and a hollow ground blade. So that's this knife. Let's talk about my opinion of it more, but those are the specs. So first of all, I've carried this knife for a while, and I do really like it. It's a very iconic knife. You have 2 different ways to deploy it. You have the thumb studs and the flipper. I definitely prefer the flipper. I just think it's more natural for me. I mean, I am a big fan of thumb studs, but flipper is probably, I think it depends on how it's made, but most of the time I'd probably go with the flipper. These thumb studs also act as blade stops. Of course, there's no pin there. Well, is there? There's not. It almost looked like there is, but there is not. Wow, it's just the shadow, my bad. Okay, so these act as blade stops, which keep the blade from over deploying and going back too far that way. I have not disassembled this knife. I have been starting to disassemble more of my knives just to learn about them more. I haven't disassembled this guy. I did swap the pocket clip on it, so it'd be tip up instead of tip down. I think just overall I always like tip up better. Just nice like this. I always swap them just tip up. Of course, the 940 came like that. But here I'll throw it like Tenacious. All these knives came tip down. I just like to swap them because I like that the best to carry in my pocket. But with the Leek, it was kind of hard to decide. And the reason for that is that it was a much more deep carry if it was tipped down. And I am a big fan of deep carry in most knives. Some knives, not so much if I really want something to have enough space to pull on. Like if it was an Emerson or something that could wave, of course I'd want more space. I wouldn't want it to be a deep carry. And also with this knife, there's a safety on it, which I think is kind of smart because it is a spring-assisted knife. I don't think you really need that on a spring-assisted knife. For instance, the Cryo does not have a safety, and it's spring-assisted as well. But I think it's a kind of nice bonus. Okay, so the Leek, a really cool knife. The handles are stainless steel, so it's a little heavy. Well, 3 ounces isn't heavy, but it's a pretty small knife as that is. It's probably medium-sized. It can fit in my hand. I can get a full 3-finger grip on that. Although compared to, I'll pull out the Rat 1 again, I can get a much more relaxed 3-finger grip on a knife like this. Okay, so spring-assisted, let's talk about that. So spring-assisted or assisted opening, or speed safe, according to Kershaw, is what they call it. I am not a big fan of it, and I'll tell you why. I like knives that are like this better. This is just not spring assisted, and keep the rat one out, as opposed to spring assisted knives. And the reason for that is pretty simple, is that I can get just as fast of a deployment with a knife that's not spring assisted as I could with a knife that is spring assisted. So this is the not spring assisted knife, just as fast of a deployment, easily. Now as you see, this blade does fall freely. It just closes very easily. Now this guy does not. You have a lot of spring tension built up against it while you try to close it. It's kind of hard to close. And unless it was a very budget knife or something, of course these are not very high-end knives, but still, unless it was like, $20 knife, this is around $40. So if it was a $20 knife, then I would be okay with it being spring assisted, because then I would know that it would always deploy. No matter how I flick it, it's going to always deploy. So the thumb's done. As opposed to a knife like this, there's a chance it couldn't deploy. I mean, if I did a bad deployment, I don't know really how I'd do that. This knife is very smooth, but yeah, I guess it could get a bad deployment occasionally if I just barely pushed on the thumb stud. And if it was spring assisted, it was always open. But it really doesn't take much thinking or much technique just to make it so it pops out every time. It's really not that hard. And you get to close it much easier than you could with spring assisted knife. So would rather just normal as opposed to spring assisted. But on a knife like this, I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't know how smooth it would be without the spring assistedness or speed safe or whatever. So I guess now I know it will always deploy, which I guess is kind of nice. Same with the cryo, both spring assisted. These are both pretty minimal designs. This one's stainless steel. I can't remember if this is stainless steel or aluminum. It's probably stainless steel. I do have a review on the cryo if you want to check that out. These are both very iconic knives, especially for Kershaw. They're all just classics, Hall of Fame knives. So are pretty much all the knives that I showed you today, just in and out, especially knives like the 940, stuff like that. But I've been carrying this knife a lot, and one of my favorite things about it is the Wharncliffe blade. I'm a big fan of Wharncliffes. It's just probably one of my favorite blade designs. It just cuts very well. It tapers in to be a very thin blade at the point. It's not too fragile. Here, let me take out this guy again. Compare tips. So this is a reverse Tanto blade, the 940, and it has a much thicker tip. So for EDC purposes, I think I would much rather something like the 940. Of course, I would rather that in almost any sense, just because the 940 is a $200 knife, and it's a $40 knife. It just has better materials and better design. But for a $40 knife, this is pretty good. But the blade is pretty thin, which is good for some things. If you really need to do some hard use with the tip of your knife, I don't know how well it'd hold up. It might snap, it might bend. It's probably a harder steel, so it'd probably snap. But for what I haven't had any problems with it. Just opening packages, letters, boxes. It's really never been a problem. Now this is more of a scary blade. Oh man, scary knife, right? But I guess it's more pointy. I guess more protruding. So I guess that could scare someone. Also a thing that I had someone mention in my comments, which I thought was really interesting, is he talks about basically sometimes if someone was looking at him, he was being scared with a knife, basically he would open it with two hands. And I'll do that with Tenacious here. Someone looking at him, oh man, you don't want to spider flick it out. That might be a little too flashy. So you open it with two hands, cut it, close it with two hands. Less scary of a knife, right? For some people. Now you couldn't do that very well with a knife like this. It'd be hard. You have to pull it out there and fight against all the tension right here that wants to shoot it out. So you have to fight against that, deploy it, cut something. It's much harder with spring-assisted knives. And especially if this was like an automatic knife or something, that'd be definitely impossible. So that's my rundown on the Kershaw Leek. I don't want to drag out this review too long. I'm going to post an EDC soon before it's the end of this month. I know, guys, I'm sorry. The EDC is going to be a little late this month because today's the 29th when I'm uploading this. But thank you guys for watching. We're getting pretty close to 200 subs, but of course we passed up 2,000 views a while ago. I did mention that in one of my videos. I do want to thank you guys for that. I'm thinking of more ideas, more content ideas, some funny DCs, stuff like that coming up in the future, especially for special events. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you have not yet, and I'll see you guys in my next video. See ya.